Chinese Mythology, A Journey into Ancient Legends. Introduction. Imagine a tranquil evening in ancient China. The air is warm and filled with the glow of paper lanterns swaying gently under the eaves of a wooden pavilion. An elder steps forward, their voice soft yet clear, and the gathered family falls silent, ready to listen. Under the shimmer of countless stars, they begin to recount the oldest stories of their people. Tales of how the world was born from chaos, of gods and goddesses who shaped the land, of heroic emperors, clever tricksters, and fearsome beasts. This is the world of Chinese mythology, a rich tapestry of legend and lore that has evolved over thousands of years. In these tales, history and myth intertwine. Ancient culture heroes become gods, and deities walk among mortals. We meet Pangu, the giant who cracked open the primordial egg of chaos, Nüwa, the mother serpent who molded humanity from clay, and sages like the Yellow Emperor who brought order and invention to the world. We hear of archers like Hu Yi shooting down extra suns to save the scorched earth, and of benevolent dragons swirling through the clouds to shower rain upon the fields. Each story, passed down in villages and courts alike, carries the wisdom and values of a civilization. Chinese mythology, in its vastness, is not merely a collection of fantastical stories. It is a reflection of the moral ideals, the historical memory, and the spiritual yearning of the Chinese people. Our journey through Chinese mythology will unfold slowly and calmly, much like an epic told over many nights. We will travel from the creation of the cosmos and the dawn of gods and humans, through the age of legendary rulers and the trials of heroes, into the celestial realms of the Jade Emperor's court and the enchanted isles of the Immortals. With each step, we'll pause to absorb the meaning and magic of these myths, their deep symbolism, their cultural echoes, and the gentle lessons they offer. Now, let us begin at the very beginning, in the time of chaos before the heavens and earth had taken shape. Creation of the cosmos. In the beginning, before heaven and earth existed, there was only shapeless chaos, a dark, swirling void. Out of this primordial chaos, an enormous cosmic egg took shape, containing within it the perfectly balanced energies of yin and yang. For 18,000 years, the giant Pangu, the first living being, slumbered inside this cosmic egg. He was often imagined as a horned, shaggy titan, a being as wild and untamed as the chaos itself. When Pangu finally awoke, he stretched his limbs and, finding himself confined, swung a mighty axe to crack the egg open. In that moment, the shell of the egg split apart. All that was light and pure, the bright yang essence, drifted upwards to form the sky and heavens, while all that was heavy and turbid, the dark yin essence, sank downwards to form the earth. Pangu stood between the newly separated sky and earth like a living pillar. Each day he pushed the heavens and the earth further apart, growing taller and taller himself to keep them apart. This labor continued for another 18,000 years, until the sky was high and secure and the earth firm and vast. Only then, utterly exhausted, did Pangu lay down to rest, and as he did, his life came to an end. In death, Pangu's immense body gave rise to the world's features. His breath became the winds and clouds, and his voice became the rolling thunder. His left eye gleamed and became the sun, while his right eye turned into the moon, bringing light into the world. His muscular arms and legs formed the mountain ranges, and his blood flowed into the low places to fill them as rivers and seas. Pangu's beard transformed into the glittering stars of the night sky, and the hairs on his body became the flora of the earth, trees, flowers, and all the green growing things. Even the tiny creatures that had lived on Pangu's skin found new life. One legend says that the fleas and lice on his body became the first human beings, scattered across the land. Thus, in the myth of Pangu, the universe was born from the body of a god. By sacrificing himself, this giant established the fundamental harmony of yin and yang, and gave shape to the world. Through this creative act, the once formless chaos was transformed into the ordered cosmos, a vast sky above, a solid earth below, and all the features of nature in between. Notably, Chinese tradition did not emphasize a creation ex nihilo. Early mythic accounts focus more on the ordering of pre-existing chaos. The Pangu creation story itself only crystallized in the centuries after the Classical era, first appearing in written form around the 3rd century CE. But it quickly became one of the best-known origin myths, illustrating the Chinese view of creation as a process of bringing balance and order out of chaos. In its vivid imagery, we see a world that is quite literally one with humanity. People are born from the same cosmic being that gave birth to rivers and stars, affirming a deep kinship between mankind and nature. Nüwa, the mother of humanity. When the world was new and the earth freshly formed, there were yet no people to walk its valleys or sing its praises. The task of populating this young world fell to Nüwa, a gentle goddess with the body of a serpent and the heart of a mother. In Chinese legend, Nüwa is one of the ancient creator beings, the mother of humanity. She lived amid the verdant Qilin Mountains, a sacred range thought to bridge heaven and earth. But despite the beauty around her, Nüwa felt alone. Yearning for companions, she decided to create beings in her own image. Nüwa scooped up yellow clay from the riverbank and began to sculpt figures, small and large. Patiently, she molded arms and legs, eyes and mouths, until she had shaped a being that faintly resembled herself, the first human. With a divine breath, Nüwa gave these clay figures life, and at once they began to dance and speak, full of joy. Delighted, Nüwa set about making more and more men and women from the earth. According to one popular telling, she eventually grew tired of crafting each person by hand, so she dipped a rope in the muddy clay and swung it around. The droplets that fell became people as well. It is said the ones Nüwa formed carefully are the nobles, and those flung from the rope are the common folk. In this loving, playful manner, humanity was born, and Nüwa, pleased with her creations, watched them multiply and fill the earth. Yet Nüwa's care for the world was far from over. In time, a great calamity struck the early world of humans. The legends speak of a war among powerful beings, sometimes described as quarreling demons or a rebellious god, that shook heaven and earth. One wrathful deity, the water god Gong Gong, smashed his head against a sacred mountain that upheld the sky in a fit of rage. One of the pillars of heaven cracked under the impact, and the vaulted sky collapsed partially, tearing a great hole in the firmament. Suddenly, the ordered world was thrown back into chaos. Floodwaters gushed forth and fires raged as the balance of the elements broke down. The blue sky itself seemed to be falling. Nüwa saw her cherished humans in peril and sprang into action to save her creation. She cut the legs off a mighty turtle, an immortal cosmic turtle, and set these 4 legs as new pillars at the 4 corners of the sky to support heaven once more. She then gathered stones of 5 different colors, representing the 5 elements, and melted them with divine fire to produce a rainbow-colored paste. With this paste, Nüwa patched the sky, sealing the heavenly breach and stopping the torrential rains that were flooding the earth. In some versions of the myth, Nüwa also piled up reeds and wood ash to dam the surging floodwaters, or forged blocks of 5-colored stone to fix the broken sky, or even built great earthen dikes, whatever it took to halt the devastation. Bit by bit, the world was restored. The fires died out, the floods receded into rivers and lakes, and the sky once again arched safely over the earth. Humanity was saved from extinction by their serpent-bodied mother. After these labors, Nüwa was utterly spent. She laid down upon the earth to rest and never rose again. In one poignant ending of the tale, her divine body slowly transformed into a mountain range, forever becoming a part of the land she loved. The Chinese people would forever remember Nüwa as the beneficent progenitor of humankind and the mender of the sky. Through her compassion and ingenuity, the world's order was preserved, and life continued under the repaired heavens. To this day, Nüwa is revered as a symbol of creation, protection, and maternal love, the goddess who gave humanity both birth and hope. Fuxi, the first sovereign and teacher of humanity. In Chinese lore, alongside Nüwa stands her brother and, in some legends, husband, Fuxi, the first male ancestor of civilization. Where Nüwa gave humanity life, Fuxi gave them culture. He is counted among the 3 sovereigns, the trio of divine rulers who guided humanity in antiquity. And Fuxi's reign is imagined as a time when people first learned the arts of survival and society. Like his sister, Fuxi was sometimes depicted with the body of a serpent and a human head, symbolizing his semi-divine nature. His birth, too, was miraculous. One story says his mother was a maiden who became pregnant after encountering a mysterious giant footprint of a god. She carried Fuxi in her womb for 12 long years before he was finally born into the world. In other accounts, Fuxi and Nüwa themselves were the only survivors of a great flood. They prayed for a sign from heaven and were given divine sanction to become husband and wife, thereby restarting the human race. Through such tales, Fuxi is cast as both an ancestral king and a culture hero who cares for his people as if they were his children. Fuxi grew to become a wise and benevolent ruler who taught the early humans what they needed to thrive. It was Fuxi who established the very laws and norms that allowed people to live together in harmony. Under his guidance, humans learned to hunt and fish for food instead of scavenging. Fuxi showed them how to make tools and weapons, introducing the use of iron for durable arrowheads and spear tips. He is credited with inventing the hunting net so that fish could be caught from rivers and game trapped in the forests. He likewise instituted marriage and the familial order, teaching that men and women should be joined in union with proper rights, thereby bringing stability to the clan and ensuring that children were raised with both father and mother. Indeed, in many stories, Fuxi and Nüwa are a divine couple, modeling the very first marriage for the sake of humanity's continuance. Under Fuxi's rule, society began to take shape. People settled in villages, adhering to the first codes of conduct and ethical guidelines. Perhaps Fuxi's most famous contribution was to knowledge itself. Legends say that one day, as Fuxi stood by the Great Yellow River, a divine creature emerged from the waters, a dragon horse with a flowing mane and flashing scales. On the back of this marvelous being, Fuxi saw a startling pattern, a diagram made of 8 trigrams of broken and unbroken lines. Recognizing this as a message from heaven, Fuxi copied these 8 trigrams, bagua, and from them devised the earliest writing symbols and a system of divination. These trigrams, 3-line symbols of yin or yang in different combinations, became the foundation of the I Ching, Book of Changes, a classic text of philosophy and fortune-telling. In later tradition, Fuxi was thus honored as the inventor of written language, or at least its precursor, and of bookkeeping, gifting humanity the ability to record and communicate across generations. He also taught the arts of music and cooking. Some sources say he domesticated the first animals and showed people how to tame livestock instead of relying only on the hunt. He offered the first sacrifices to heaven, an open-air offering of thanksgiving, establishing a pattern of ritual that would continue through Chinese religion. In every respect, Fuxi transformed humanity from a primitive state into a cultured one. When his long reign finally came to an end, Fuxi, like other great ancient rulers, did not simply die, but was said to ascend to the heavens. In some stories, a yellow dragon spiraled down from the clouds to carry Fuxi away to the immortal realms, signifying that his time on earth was complete. In other accounts, he passed the throne peacefully to the next sovereign, his companion Shennong, and lived out his days in blessed tranquility. Either way, his departure marked the close of the mythic age of beginnings. The legacy of Fuxi's teachings endured as the cornerstone of Chinese civilization. He left behind a more ordered, knowledgeable, and civilized world. To this day, he is honored as a culture hero who gave the Chinese people the first tools of civilization, from the family unit to the written word, laying the foundation for all that would follow. Temples dedicated to Fuxi, often alongside Nüwa, can still be found, where incense is burned in memory of the first sovereign who guided humanity out of chaos and into the light of culture. Shennong, the divine farmer and herbalist. The third of the great ancient sovereigns was Shennong, the divine farmer who taught humanity the arts of agriculture and healing. Shennong is often called the Jade Emperor or Red Emperor, associated with the element of fire, and he is said to have been born around the 28th century BCE to a princess and a heavenly dragon. If Fuxi gave humans law and craft, Shennong gave them nourishment and health. Under Shennong's guidance, the early people of China learned to sow seeds, plow fields, and harvest grain for the first time. He invented the plow and the hoe, fashioned from wood and stone, and showed people how to till the earth and turn wild plants into crops. Thanks to Shennong, the hunter-gatherers were transformed into farmers. They could cultivate rice, wheat, and millet, ensuring a steady food supply from the rich soil of river valleys. Shennong's contributions went beyond farming. He is revered as the father of Chinese medicine, a pioneer who first discovered the healing properties of herbs. According to legend, Shennong traveled the land to test the plants that grew in fields and forests. In a time before written prescriptions, he personally tasted hundreds of wild herbs, roots, and fruits to learn their effects. He carried out these experiments diligently, ingesting one plant after another, even when some were poisonous. It's said that Shennong had a transparent stomach, so he could observe the effects of each herb on his body, and thus determine which plants were beneficial and which were deadly. Through many trials, folklore claims he withstood 70 poisons in a single day, Shennong gradually compiled a catalog of 365 medicinal herbs, corresponding to the days of the year. He taught the people which leaves, flowers, and roots could cure illnesses, which could ease pain, and which should be avoided. This knowledge became the basis of traditional Chinese herbal medicine. In Shennong's honor, the earliest pharmacopoeia was named the Shennong Benkaojing, Divine Farmer's Classic of Materia Medica, a text that for millennia remained a cornerstone of herbal lore. Among Shennong's legendary discoveries was the beloved drink of tea. One story recounts that as Shennong was boiling water over a fire, for he also taught that water should be boiled to make it safe, some dry leaves from a wild tea bush drifted into his pot. The leaves steeped in the hot water, creating a fragrant golden infusion. Ever the curious herbalist, Shennong drank this new brew and found that it revived him, counteracting a mild poison he had ingested earlier that day. Thus, according to myth, tea was discovered, a gift of refreshment and health that Shennong passed to humanity. Tea became known as a universal antidote, balancing the body's humors and clearing the mind, thanks to the divine farmer's serendipitous finding. Fittingly, to this day, tea is considered one of China's 7 necessities of life, and its association with Shennong underscores its status as a healthful, almost sacred beverage. Shennong's appearance in myth is often that of a robust man dressed in rough clothes or leaves, sometimes depicted with bull's horns atop his head, symbolizing his link to oxen and plowing, as well as the element of fire. The bull is associated with fire in 5 elements theory. He is said to have introduced the use of the axe as well, clearing forests to open land for farming. He taught people how to store grain for lean times and how to dig wells for water. He established markets where people could barter their surplus crops, fostering early commerce and community interdependence. Through his lessons, the scattered tribes learned to settle in fertile areas, forming the first agricultural villages. No longer wholly reliant on hunting, people could stay in one place and develop more complex culture, thanks to the bounty of the farms and the relief of herbal remedies. After a long life of service to his people, Shennong's tale, like those of his predecessors, merges into legend. In some accounts, he eventually met his end when he tasted a particularly toxic herb, often said to be a yellow flower of aconite, and could not find a remedy in time, thus sacrificing himself in the pursuit of knowledge, so that others would know to avoid that poison. Other stories hold that Shennong was carried off by a dragon, or simply that he ascended to the heavens after fulfilling his mission as a world teacher, taking his place among the stars. In any case, he is traditionally regarded as the last of the 3 sovereigns, and the one who paved the way for the age of true human kings. The Chinese people remember Shennong as the divine healer king who gave them agriculture to fill their stomachs and medicine to cure their ills. In temples and folklore, he is honored as the patron of farmers and doctors alike, the one who ensured that the seeds of life and the seeds of wisdom would both take root and flourish across the land. It is said that in times of plague or famine, people in the past would pray to Shennong for guidance, and many a village had a communal field dedicated in his name to be cultivated for the needy. Such is the enduring gratitude toward the god of agriculture and medicine, who turned pain into remedy and wild growth into sustenance. The Yellow Emperor, sage king and patriarch of civilization. No figure better illustrates the blend of mythology and history in Chinese lore than Huangdi, the Yellow Emperor. Regarded as both a culture hero and a deity, Huangdi is said to have reigned around 2697 BCE and is honored as the great patriarch of the Chinese people, often called the initiator of Chinese civilization. Under his leadership, disparate clans and tribes were united into one nation, laying the foundation for what would become the Middle Kingdom. His personal name was Huang Yun, but he is venerated by the title Huang Di, meaning yellow, radiant emperor, yellow being associated with the earth element and the center of the world. The Yellow Emperor's reign is remembered as a golden age of invention and statecraft. He is credited with introducing countless innovations to early China. Huang Di coined the first money, giving the realm a standardized currency. He designed vehicles and the wheel, easing travel and trade across his domains. He built sailing vessels to navigate rivers and lakes, expanding transportation and commerce. He is said to have commissioned the first roads and organized the earliest bureaucracy, assigning officials to oversee farming, crafts, justice, and rituals. According to one charming legend, Huang Di observed the footprints of birds tracking across mud and realized such marks could be used as written symbols, thus inspiring Chinese writing. Inspired, he and his ministers developed a system of characters, enabling record-keeping and communication that transcended speech. One of Huang Di's wives, Lizo, is celebrated for discovering how to unwind the delicate cocoons of silkworms and weave their fine filaments into silk, creating one of the most valuable textiles in history. Under Huang Di's patronage, the arts of weaving, pottery, metallurgy, and medicine flourished. The Yellow Emperor also decreed the first calendar, aligning the farming year with the cycles of the sun and moon. If a later invention was of obscure origin, Chinese tradition often politely attributed it to Huang Di or his advisors. So esteemed was his era as the wellspring of all beneficent knowledge. Huang Di himself was portrayed as a being of extraordinary wisdom and even supernatural traits. Some stories say he was born with 4 faces, allowing him to look in all cardinal directions at once and thus see everything in his realm. He could communicate with the gods and spirits, acting as an intermediary between heaven and earth. As a ruler, he traveled in a magnificent chariot pulled by teams of dragons, sometimes depicted alongside elephants, surveying and bringing order to the land. He was accompanied by flocks of phoenixes. Those mythic birds would follow in his train, symbolizing the prosperity and virtue of his rule. It is even said that Huang Di discovered the profound philosophy of the Tao, the underlying way of the universe, during his reign. He sought out the wise hermit Guangchengzi on Mount Kongdong and received esoteric teachings on how to govern in harmony with the Tao. In one account, toward the end of his life, Huang Di attained such enlightenment that he achieved immortality. When his time on Earth drew to a close, a great yellow dragon descended from the sky to carry him off to the heavens. As he departed, 70 of his loyal ministers and courtiers, unwilling to be parted from their sage sovereign, followed him and also ascended, a testimony to how beloved he was. In other versions, only Huang Di himself transforms, becoming an immortal or a deity, sometimes identified with the planet Saturn or a star in the northern sky. His tomb, if he had one, was never meant to be found, for he went up alive in broad daylight. This mystical end cemented Huang Di's status not just as a hero of history, but as a cosmic being. Throughout Chinese history, Huang Di was revered as a primordial ancestor. Many noble lineages and later emperors claimed descent from him, calling themselves Shangdi, the Yellow Emperor's descendants, to bolster their legitimacy. The concept of huaxia, Chinese, identity, is often tied to Huang Di. He is figuratively the father of all Han Chinese. He was also revered as a patron of esoteric knowledge. The medical text Huang Di Neijing, Yellow Emperor's Inner Classic, is framed as a dialogue in which Huang Di discusses health and the balance of the body with his physicians. In Taoist tradition, Huang Di is one of the exalted immortals. Yet, the Yellow Emperor's story is also one of a mortal leader who overcame great challenges. In one famous legend, he faced a fearsome rebel lord named Qi Yu, who led an army of warriors with bronze heads and iron foreheads against the Yellow Emperor. The battle between Huang Di and Qi Yu was epic. Qi Yu conjured thick fogs and storms with the help of the wind and rain gods, nearly overwhelming the imperial forces. In response, Huang Di invented a south-pointing chariot, a kind of compass wagon that allowed his troops to navigate in the smothering fog. He also called upon divine aid. The Lady Ba, a daughter of heaven who personified drought, blew away Qi Yu's magical fog with scorching winds. Armed with clarity and guided by strategy, Huangdi's forces defeated Qiyu at the Battle of Zhulu, capturing and executing the rebel. After the battle, Huangdi showed magnanimity by honoring Qiyu as a deity. Qiyu's ferocity was later worshipped by some ethnic groups as a war god, while Huangdi centralized power and ushered in an age of peace. This victory is seen as the moment the Huaxia tribes united under one leader, marking the true dawn of Chinese civilization. Huangdi's era is often associated with the beginning of China's Golden Age, and later Confucian scholars especially exalted the Yellow Emperor and his successors as models of wise and virtuous leadership. After Huangdi, the mantle passed to a series of sagely rulers known as the Five Emperors. These were not emperors in the later imperial sense, but revered chieftains or kings chosen for their virtue and wisdom. In most accounts, the first of the five emperors is Huangdi himself. He was succeeded by his grandson Xuanxu, who ruled for 78 years. Emperor Xuanxu is credited with establishing the calendar and astronomy, devising China's earliest calendar system to harmonize human life with the seasons and stars. He also reinforced a patriarchal clan system and forbade close-kin marriage, further structuring society. The third emperor was Ku, a great-grandson of Huangdi, remembered for encouraging the arts and music. Myth says he invented musical instruments like the Guanyin zither and drums, bringing music and ritual into court life. The fourth was Yao, often praised as the wisest and most moral of the five emperors. Emperor Yao's reign is depicted as a utopia. He was so selfless that when it came time to choose a successor, he bypassed his own, flawed, son and found the most virtuous man in the land, a commoner named Shun. Shun thus became the fifth and final emperor, known for his filial piety and humble leadership. Shun is said to have worked menial jobs and endured hardship under his cruel relatives, yet he remained kind and dutiful. His exemplary conduct convinced Yao that Shun was worthy to rule. During Shun's reign, great projects, like dredging channels, which Shun delegated to the hero Yu, were undertaken, and the people were content. In Confucian telling, the five emperors represented the pinnacle of benevolent governance, each emperor yielding to the next based on merit rather than bloodline, a model of sage kingship. With Shun, the line of five emperors merges into the narrative of the Xia dynasty, as Shun eventually ceded power to Yu the Great. Thus, the mythic age of pristine virtue transitions into the heroic age of dynastic founders. Nevertheless, the legacy of the Yellow Emperor and the Five Emperors endured as an ideal for later ages. Emperors would pray to Huangdi and Yao and Shun, hoping to emulate their virtue. Even today, Chinese people refer to themselves as descendants of Yan and Huang, the flame Yan Emperor, Shennong, and the yellow Huang Emperor, to signify shared heritage. The Yellow Emperor, in particular, stands at the very dawn of Chinese consciousness. A lawgiver, innovator, warrior, and sage wrapped into one. His memory represents a unity of the Chinese people, a golden standard of wise rule, and the deep intertwining of myth and history that characterizes China's traditional narrative. Heroes of the Great Flood, Gun, Yu, and the Xia dynasty. For all the wise rule of the five emperors, one elemental threat remained ever present in ancient China, the wrath of floodwaters. The Yellow River and the Yangtze, cradles of civilization, could also unleash terrible floods that drowned fields and villages. Legends tell of a particularly calamitous great flood that surged across the land in the time of Emperor Yao and continued under Emperor Shun, threatening to destroy the nascent civilization. In this desperate time, a hero emerged, or rather two generations of heroes, father and son, whose story is one of perseverance, failure, and ultimate triumph over nature's fury. The saga begins with a man named Gun, a great-grandson of the Yellow Emperor, who was tasked by the emperor to stop the relentless flooding. Gun was determined and resourceful. To build mighty dikes and dams, he went so far to steal a sacred item from the celestial heavens, a clump of magic soil known as Sirong, self-expanding earth, which could grow on its own and block the waters. For 9 years, Gun labored, piling up earthen embankments along the raging rivers. Yet, despite his efforts, the floods only grew more fierce. The water overtopped and burst through the dikes, inundating the plains and causing even greater destruction. Gun's gamble had failed, and worse, his theft of heaven's soil had angered the supreme deity, the celestial emperor. As punishment, the fiery god Zhurong, heaven's executioner, was sent down to slay Gun for his transgression. Gun met a tragic end, but even in death, his story was not over. According to the myth, Gun's lifeless body did not decay. After 3 years, something miraculous happened. His corpse split open, and a great dragon emerged from within, soaring up to the sky. This dragon took the form of Gun's son, Yu, who would later earn the epithet Da-Yu, Yu the Great. Born or reborn from his father's remains, Yu accepted the mission that had cost Gun his life. Emperor Shun entrusted Yu with the colossal task of taming the flood that still ravaged the land. Yu was wise enough to learn from his father's mistakes. Instead of trying to dam up and contain the enormous flood outright, Yu pursued a different strategy, channeling and guiding the waters to safely flow away. Aided by a mystical dragon named Yinglong, said to be the oldest of dragons and a rain deity, Yu traveled across the length and breadth of China, devising a vast system of canals, irrigation ditches, and outlet channels. He oversaw the dredging of riverbeds and the cutting of new waterways, giving the surging floodwaters pathways to escape to the sea. In places, he built levees and retention basins. In others, he broke through mountains, with the help of Yinglong and other spirits, to open passages for trapped waters. Bit by bit, the great floodwaters receded, finding their way to the Eastern Ocean. Yu's dedication to his mission was legendary. It is said that for 13 years he toiled ceaselessly, drenched by rain and mud, personally inspecting channels and directing workers to dig deeper or wider where needed. During this entire period, Yu passed by his own home multiple times, but never once went in to visit his family. On one occasion, as Yu was carving out a canal near his village, he heard that his wife had given birth to their son. Yet even hearing the infant's cries, Yu did not allow himself to stop and celebrate. He simply wept with longing outside his door and continued working, determined to finish his divine task. Such was his selfless commitment to saving the people that he put the welfare of the realm above his personal life. Over time, Yu's exertions even transformed his body. Some tales say his feet became thick and splayed like a tortoise's from standing in water, and his hands became gnarled and calloused like tree bark from digging in mud. At last, Yu's Herculean efforts were crowned with success. The floodwaters drained away, rivers flowed calmly within their banks, and fertile plains emerged once more for farming. The people, who had suffered so long, rejoiced and hailed Yu as their savior. Emperor Shun, impressed by Yu's virtue and effectiveness, named him High Minister and eventually abdicated the throne in favor of Yu. Thus, Yu the Great became the new emperor, in fact, the first ruler of China's legendary Xia dynasty, traditionally dated 2070 to 1600 BCE. With Yu's ascension, the era of the 5 emperors gave way to the era of dynasties. Under Emperor Yu's governance, irrigation canals and dikes were maintained, new farmlands were reclaimed, and China was said to enjoy prosperity and order, safe from the once devastating floods. The story of the Great Flood and Yu's triumph was cherished for millennia as a foundational legend of the Chinese state. It illustrated that through perseverance, humility, and working with nature's forces rather than against them, even the greatest disaster could be overcome. Yu the Great's name became synonymous with resilience and devotion. Later generations looked back on the Xia dynasty, even as modern archaeology debates the historicity of Xia, as the beginning of China's dynastic history, when kingship first passed from father to son. In the tale's grand finale, Yu is sometimes likened to a dragon himself, linking heaven and earth. Just as he was born from a dragon's body, he ruled with sagely wisdom and, in some versions, ascended to heaven on the back of a dragon at the end of his days, completing the cycle of divine favor. Whether or not the man Yu was real, the ideal of Yu, the selfless leader who tames floods and creates order, has been very real in the hearts of the Chinese people. His legacy is literally engraved in the landscape. Ancient dikes and canals are still attributed to Yu in local lore, and figuratively enshrined in the cultural memory as the dragon-quelling hero who made the world safe for civilization. The story of the Great Flood and Yu's triumph was cherished for millennia as a foundational legend of the Chinese state. It illustrated that through perseverance, humility, and working with nature's forces rather than against them, even the greatest disaster could be overcome. Yu the Great's name became synonymous with resilience and devotion. Later generations looked back on the Xia dynasty, even as modern archaeology debates the historicity of Xia, as the beginning of China's dynastic history, when kingship first passed from father to son. In the tale's grand finale, Yu is sometimes likened to a dragon himself, linking heaven and earth. Just as he was born from a dragon's body, he ruled with sagely wisdom and, in some versions, ascended to heaven on the back of a dragon at the end of his days, completing the cycle of divine favor. Whether or not the man Yu was real, the ideal of Yu, the selfless leader who tames floods and creates order, has been very real in the hearts of the Chinese people. His legacy is literally engraved in the landscape. Ancient dikes and canals are still attributed to Yu in local lore, and figuratively enshrined in the cultural memory as the dragon-quelling hero who made the world safe for civilization. The Heavenly Court, the Jade Emperor, and the Celestial Bureaucracy. High above the earth, beyond the mortal realms, Chinese mythology envisions a magnificent celestial empire mirroring the bureaucracy of the human world. At its pinnacle sits the Jade Emperor, Yu Huang Dadi, or Yu Di, the august ruler of heaven and all the gods. In the popular imagination, the Jade Emperor is a kindly yet authoritative figure, a heavenly monarch seated on a resplendent throne, robed in imperial dragon-embroidered silk and wearing a beaded crown. He holds a ceremonial tablet of precious jade as he surveys the affairs of the cosmos. The Jade Emperor's court is a vast, bustling administration of deities great and small, organized much like an imperial government. Just as an earthly emperor has ministers and officials for every task, so too does the Jade Emperor presides over a hierarchy of heavenly officials, from the mighty dragon kings who govern the seas, to the city gods who watch over towns, down to the humble kitchen god assigned to each household to record that family's deeds. In this celestial bureaucracy, every deity has a title and portfolio, every spirit a rank and duty. The Jade Emperor is said to receive reports on all happenings in the three domains, heaven, earth, and the underworld, and to issue edicts ensuring balance between them. Though whether or not the man Yu was real, the ideal of Yu, the selfless leader who tames floods and creates order, has been very real in the hearts of the Chinese people. His legacy is literally engraved in the landscape. Ancient dikes and canals are still attributed to Yu in local lore, and figuratively enshrined in the cultural memory as the dragon-quelling hero who made the world safe for civilization. The idea of a supreme ruler in heaven has deep roots in Chinese thought. During the ancient Shang dynasty, the people worshipped Shangdi, the Lord on high, as an impersonal supreme deity, and by the Zhou dynasty, this concept evolved into Tian, heaven, an abstract, moral heaven that watched over the human realm. Over time, especially with the influence of Taoism and popular religion, this abstract heaven was personified into the figure of the Jade Emperor, making the divine order more relatable by casting it in the familiar shape of an imperial court. By the Song dynasty, 960 to 1279 CE, the worship of the Jade Emperor was officially endorsed by the state. Song emperors conferred upon him titles like Yu Huang Shangdi, Jade August High Sovereign, and even Hao Tian, Lord of the Vast Sky, to elevate his status in the pantheon. In official Taoist theology, the Jade Emperor is sometimes considered a lower emanation of the ineffable Tao itself, a kind of executive administrator of the cosmos, with the three pure ones, San Qing, above him. But in folk belief, he is very much a patriarchal king who listens to prayers, dispenses rewards to the good, and punishes the wicked, assisted by his myriad officials. Life in the heavenly palace under the Jade Emperor mirrors a well-run Chinese empire. There are ministries of weather, wealth, justice, and so on. Each local earth god sends annual reports up the chain of command. The god of walls and moats protects each city on the Jade Emperor's behalf, and the kitchen god of each home reports that family's behavior to heaven every New Year. Hence, families offer him sweet candy before he ascends to sweeten his report. Even the underworld is organized, with the 10 magistrates of hell keeping records of souls and their punishments, ultimately answerable to the Jade Emperor's judgment. This bureaucratic logic is a striking part of Chinese religious life. For peasants who could not read in ancient times, the bureaucratic nature of the gods was evident in temple iconography. Deities were dressed as government officials. Temples were laid out like courtrooms, complete with red doors and formal throne rooms where supplicants approach with proper decorum. People wrote petitions, prayers, on paper and burned them, believing the documents would travel to heaven for the Jade Emperor's perusal, just like memorials submitted to an earthly throne. The Chinese conception of the divine was thus highly orderly and relatable. Heaven was not an unknowable chaos, but a perfected version of Earth's own order. Many enchanting myths emphasize the Jade Emperor's role as the celestial administrator and benevolent patriarch. One beloved folktale describes how the Jade Emperor created the Chinese zodiac. Desiring to devise a calendar for measuring time, he announced a great race across a river and invited all the animals to participate. The first 12 animals to finish would earn a place in the zodiac cycle of years. The clever rat, knowing its small size was a disadvantage in the river, convinced the sturdy ox to carry it across. Just as they reached the opposite bank, the sly rat jumped off the ox's back and scurried in first, winning the honor of the first year. The loyal ox lumbered in second. Next came the powerful tiger, panting from the strong currents, and then the agile rabbit, who had hopped across on stones and floating logs. Despite being able to fly, the dragon arrived fifth because it had stopped to help some villagers by summoning rain for their drought, a testament to the dragon's kind heart. The horse galloped up next, but the hidden snake had coiled around the horse's leg. It unhitched itself and startled the horse, slithering ahead to take the 6th spot while the horse took 7th. The sheep, monkey, and rooster came ashore next. They had cooperated by building a raft and paddling together, finishing 8th, 9th, and 10th respectively. The playful dog, who got distracted by splashing in the water, managed to come in 11th. And finally, well after the rest, the pig trotted in 12th. It had gotten hungry and taken a nap mid-race, but still made it in time to be included. The Jade Emperor laughed and praised each animal for its qualities, and thus the 12-year cycle was born. Every year would be ruled by one animal in the order of the race. This whimsical story highlights the Jade Emperor's fairness and sense of humor. It also subtly imparts moral lessons, e.g. the virtue of cooperation shown by the rooster, monkey, and goat, under the Jade Emperor's just decree. To this day, people tell this tale and celebrate the turning of the years with the animals as a cherished cultural tradition, all thanks to the Jade Emperor's idea. Though the Jade Emperor is supremely powerful, he is not depicted as an aloof tyrant. He has a family and ministers, and a compassionate side. In some myths, his wife is the great queen mother of the West, Wangmu, who rules her own paradise of immortality and occasionally hosts the Peaches of Immortality banquet for the gods. More on her in the next section. He often consults with other high divinities and sages. Notably, in the famous tale, Havoc in Heaven, when son Wukong, the Monkey King, rebelled and proclaimed himself equal to heaven, it was not the Jade Emperor alone who dealt with it. He ultimately had to call on Buddha for help. This shows a humility in the mythology. The Jade Emperor, despite being the highest of popular gods, still works within a larger cosmic framework that includes Buddha and Taoist immortals. In Chinese temples dedicated to the Jade Emperor, often on the 9th day of the first lunar month, his supposed birthday, worshippers do not fear him as a distant tyrant, but approach him as a just and caring ruler. They report injustices to him in prayer, much as one might submit a case to a wise magistrate, and they trust that the Jade Emperor will dispatch the right celestial aid or correct cosmic balance in response. To farmers, he was the one who could send timely rains via the Dragon Kings if pleased. To families, he was the one whose decree could protect them from plagues or whose calendar made sense of their year. In essence, the Jade Emperor embodies the Chinese belief in a cosmic hierarchy and moral order. He ensures that every level of existence, from the broad heavens to the narrow kitchen stove, is tended by a responsible spirit. Through this grand heavenly court, the Chinese found comfort that their universe was not chaotic. It was managed by a wise ruler and his celestial administrators, reflecting the ideal that if heaven is orderly and just, so too should earth be. The Jade Emperor stands as the ultimate symbol of heaven's benevolence and authority, a divine sovereign who, much like a good earthly emperor, cares for the welfare of all under the sky. The Queen Mother of the West, keeper of the peaches of immortality. Far to the west, beyond the mortal lands, lies the enchanted paradise of Qilin, a sacred mountain realm often described as the western axis of the world. Ruling over this celestial domain is one of the most powerful and ancient goddesses in Chinese mythology, Wangmu, the Queen Mother of the West. Wangmu is revered as the great matriarch of the immortals, a deity who governs life and death, yin and yang, and the mystical arts from her jade palace atop Qilin Mountain. In early legends, such as oracle bone inscriptions and the classic of Mountains and Seas, she appears as a wild, powerful being, sometimes depicted with the fangs of a tiger and the tail of a leopard, commanding legions of spirits and dispensing divine retribution. Back then, she was seen as a fearsome goddess of plague and justice. But over the centuries, especially by the Han Dynasty, Wangmu transformed into a benevolent monarch of the West, an embodiment of ultimate yin, female power, and compassion. By the time of the Tang Dynasty and beyond, she was venerated primarily as the goddess of immortality, a kindly queen who grants longevity and salvation to worthy heroes and deities. The Queen Mother's peach orchard is her most famous domain. Within her gardens grow the fabled peaches of immortality, pantao, fruit that bestow eternal life, or at least an additional eon of life, upon those who eat them. These are no ordinary peaches. They are said to take thousands of years to ripen, imbued with the essences of the sun, moon, and stars. Only when the time is right, some say every 3,000 years, others 6,000 or 9,000 depending on the variety, does Wangmu host the Grand Peach Banquet, Pantaohui. She invites all the august deities and immortals to her crystal pavilion to partake in the ripe peaches and rejuvenate their immortality. The peaches themselves are described as pink orbs the size of small melons, exuding an otherworldly fragrance. Just one bite can confer years of youthful vigor. A whole peach can grant immortality or unaging longevity to gods, demigods, and even a mortal if one were somehow invited. Wangmu often is shown wearing a headdress adorned with peach motifs, and sometimes holding a plate of peaches or a peach-shaped scepter, underscoring her role as the keeper of immortality. In her honorific titles, she is sometimes called Golden Mother of the Shining Lake or Queen Mother of the Nine Heavens, reflecting her cosmic importance and motherly status to the divine. Mortals, too, have long sought Wangmu's favor. Throughout history, there are tales of emperors and heroes attempting to visit her fairy court on Qilin to ask for wisdom or a boon of longevity. The Zhao Dynasty, 10th century BCE, allegedly journeyed with 8 horses to the far west and met the Queen Mother. According to legend, Wangmu entertained King Mu with a banquet of delicacies and music in her jade palace and taught him a bit of the arts of good governance. King Mu hoped to bring her back to his capital, but she declined. In some versions, he left Qilin after a short sojourn, only to find that many years had passed in the outside world, a common trope indicating the divine realm's different flow of time. Another story from the Han era claims that Emperor Wu of Han, 2nd century BCE, dreamt of Wangmu and then had a nocturnal encounter with her in his palace, during which she presented him with peaches and discussed the secrets of heaven. Whether or not the emperor truly believed this, he certainly promoted the cult of Wangmu, building temples and offering sacrifices to her in hopes of longevity and prosperity for his empire. The common people told stories too. One famous love legend, related to the Qixi festival, involves Jinu, the weaver girl, a daughter of Wangmu in some versions, who is allowed to marry a mortal cowherd but later must be separated from him by the Queen Mother's decree, resulting in the annual reunion of the star-crossed lovers as stars, a story often conflated with or supervised by Wangmu as the celestial matriarch. Wangmu's Peaches of Immortality play a central role in one of the liveliest episodes of Journey to the West. As mentioned earlier, the Monkey King, Sun Wukong, while serving as a stable boy in heaven, sneaked into Wangmu's heavenly orchard. Discovering the enormous peaches, he couldn't resist and proceeded to stuff himself with the divine fruit, eating many before their time. He then crashed the Queen Mother's peach banquet, drinking the Jade Emperor's wine and gobbling down Laozi's elixir pills in a spree of celestial delinquency. It was largely this offense, the theft of Wangmu's prized peaches, that galvanized heaven to action and led to the Monkey King's imprisonment by Buddha. Later, in the same novel, after Sun Wukong has reformed, Wangmu graciously offers a few remaining peaches to the travelers when they reach the Western Paradise, symbolizing the reward of enlightenment. In another tale, Wangmu interacts with Hou Yi and Chang'e. After Hou Yi shot down the 9 excess sons, Wangmu gave him a potion of immortality as a reward, which ultimately was taken by his wife Chang'e, leading to Chang'e's ascent to the moon, as we shall see in the next section about the moon goddess. Thus, Wangmu's gifts directly and indirectly spark several key myths of immortality. In Taoist tradition, the Queen Mother of the West is regarded as the patroness of spiritual cultivators, especially female Taoists. She is often depicted not as a fearsome deity, but as a regal, graceful lady in a flowing gown, sometimes riding on a phoenix or standing on a cloud. During the Tang Dynasty, when Empress Wu Zetian ruled China, there was a surge in Wangmu worship, in part to legitimize a woman holding ultimate power. People likened Wu Zetian to the Queen Mother ruling on earth by divine sanction. To some Taoist lineages, Wangmu is the teacher of women's mysteries, granting women access to spiritual attainment equal to men's. In popular worship, she is appealed to for health and longevity, and imagery of her paradise, with cranes, deer, and peaches, is common in birthday celebrations for elders, symbolizing a wish for long life, as if one had tasted the peach of immortality. The duality of Wangmu's character, once a wild dispenser of divine wrath, now a beneficent guardian of life, reflects the Chinese understanding of the balance of yin and yang and the transformation that compassion brings. She has command over life-giving powers, the peaches, the feminine yin essence, but is also respected for her former fierceness, reminding worshippers that mercy and severity are two faces of cosmic justice. Under her watch, the Western Paradise is a place of healing and renewal for worthy souls. In many Chinese paintings, the Queen Mother is shown greeting heroes or immortals with a cup of jade wine or a peach, signifying that they have achieved a form of enlightenment or divine favor. Through it all, Wangmu stands as an awe-inspiring figure, the matriarch of immortality, keeper of secrets that even the Jade Emperor respects. In the words of one medieval poet, "When the peaches bloom and are plucked by the Queen Mother, the fragrance reaches 10,000 li, and those who smell it know the world is at peace." In Chinese mythology, peace and immortality alike are often symbolized by her peaches and her presence. In a world so full of turmoil, the idea of a compassionate celestial queen who nurtures the garden of eternity offers comfort and hope. And so, each time the story is told of how the Queen Mother of the West invited mortals or deities to taste her peaches, listeners are reminded of the eternal human wish to conquer time and live in harmony under heaven, a gift that only the utmost grace, embodied by Wangmu, might bestow. Dragons, benevolent emblems of power and fortune. Of all mythical creatures in Chinese lore, none is more revered than the dragon, Long. Unlike the fire-breathing, dangerous dragons of Western fairy tales, the Chinese dragon is a benevolent and majestic creature associated with heavenly beneficence, rain, and fertility. In Chinese art and literature, dragons are portrayed as wise and compassionate beings that bring blessings, the timely rains for abundant harvests, the protection of waters for sailors. Ancient Chinese farmers would perform dragon dances and prayer rituals during droughts, believing these noble beasts could intercede to deliver life-giving showers from the heavens. A proverb states, "When the dragon shows itself, the rivers will rise," reflecting the dragon's role as rainbringer. The Chinese dragon, far from a monster to be slain, is a symbol of vitality, strength, and good fortune. Physically, a Chinese dragon's appearance is an imaginative amalgam of many creatures, giving it dominion over all beasts. It has the sinuous body of a serpent covered in fish-like scales that shimmer in every color. It sports the antlers of a deer, the claws of an eagle, and the whiskered snout of a catfish, with a leonine or camel-like head crowned by a protruding horn. Its eyes are sometimes said to be like those of a rabbit or demon, imparting an intense gaze. Notably, most Chinese dragons have no wings, yet they fly amid the clouds by supernatural power, riding the wind and vapor. Often, a dragon is depicted clutching or chasing a flaming pearl among the clouds, a symbol of thunder or of the moon's essence. Far from evil, these composite features make the dragon the king of all animals, combining the best of every creature. The dragon was considered so superior that Chinese emperors adopted the dragon as their personal emblem. They sat on the dragon throne, wore robes embroidered with 9 dragons, and used the image of the dragon to represent their imperial authority and divine right to rule. To this day, the dragon remains a symbol of China itself. Chinese people sometimes poetically refer to themselves as descendants of the dragon, embracing the creature as a proud emblem of national identity, prowess, and auspiciousness. Chinese lore is rich in different kinds of dragons, each with its own role in the natural order. Ancient cosmogonists defined 4 primary dragon kings: the celestial dragon, Tianlong, who guards the dwellings of the gods in the sky; the earth dragon, Dilong, who controls the rivers and waters on the earth; the spiritual dragon, Shennong, who governs the wind and rain; and the treasure-guarding dragon, Fenghuang, who watches over buried wealth and precious minerals. In popular belief, only the rain-bringing and earth dragons were widely significant. These were eventually venerated as the Dragon Kings, gods who lived in crystal palaces under the 4 seas, delivered rain, and protected those at sea. Over the centuries, dragon lore expanded to mention 9 types of dragons in total. For example, the Tianlong, heavenly dragon, is said to pull the chariots of the gods and guard celestial mansions. The Shennong, spiritual dragon, soars in the sky, controlling the weather. Farmers historically offered sacrifices to appease Shennong for timely rains. The Fenghuang, hidden treasure dragon, dwells under mountains, guarding gems and gold. When a volcano erupts or a tremor occurs, legend says it's a Fenghuang emerging or shifting underground. The Dilong, earth dragon, lives in streams and guides the flow of rivers, acting as the aqueous counterpart to the sky dragon. The Yinglong, literally responsive dragon or winged dragon, is said to be the oldest dragon, a powerful rain deity with wings, traditionally credited with helping the Yellow Emperor and later Yu the Great in battles and flood control. The Chulong, horned dragon, is considered the mightiest form, while the Panlong, coiling dragon, inhabits lakes and coiled beneath the waters, and the Huanglong, yellow dragon, is famed for its wisdom. One emerged from the Luo River to present the sage king Fuxi with the elements of writing and knowledge. Finally, the dragon kings of the East, South, West, and North Seas are the most celebrated. Each presides over one of China's 4 major bodies of water. For example, the Azure Dragon King of the East Sea is often associated with the East China Sea and Yellow Sea, and is responsible for the rains and weather of his quadrant. In some myths, there are 4 great dragons rather than dragon kings, like long red, black, yellow, and white dragons, but the concept is similar. They rule water and weather in the 4 directions. One charming folk legend, the 4 dragons, illustrates the compassion of these dragon deities. Long ago, the story says, there were no rivers or lakes on earth, only the great eastern sea, and the people inland depended solely on rain for water. In one terrible year, no rain fell for a long time. Crops withered, people and animals were dying of thirst. From the eastern sea, 4 dragons witnessed the suffering of humankind: the long dragon, the yellow dragon, the black dragon, and the pearl dragon. Determined to help, they flew up to the Jade Emperor's palace in heaven to plead for rain. The Jade Emperor, absorbed in heavenly festivities, dismissed their plea, saying he would send rain in a few days, but he did nothing. Days passed and still no rain fell. The dragons, hearing the cries of the people, decided to take matters into their own claws. They scooped up water from the eastern sea in their mighty mouths and sprayed it across the sky like great rain clouds, letting it fall onto the parched land. Showers drenched the fields below, saving the people. But when the Jade Emperor learned that the dragons had acted without his approval, he was furious. He ordered the mountain god to imprison each of the 4 dragons under a separate mountain as punishment. The mountain god, sorrowful but obedient, dropped 4 mountains onto the dragons, pinning them down. Yet even in punishment, the dragons continued to help the people. From beneath each mountain trapped there, transformed into a flowing river. From the yellow dragon came the Great Yellow River. From the long dragon, the Yangtze or Long River. From the black dragon, the Heilong, Amur River. And from the pearl dragon, the Pearl River, Zhujiang. Thus, China's 4 greatest rivers were born, and they ensured that the people would never again suffer devastating drought. In some myths, there are 4 great dragons rather than dragon kings, like long, red, black, yellow, and white dragons, but the concept is similar. They rule water and weather in the 4 directions. One charming folk legend, the 4 dragons, illustrates the compassion of these dragon deities. Long ago, the story says, there were no rivers or lakes on earth, only the great eastern sea, and the people inland depended solely on rain for water. In one terrible year, no rain fell for a long time. Crops withered, people and animals were dying of thirst. From the eastern sea, 4 dragons witnessed the suffering of humanity: the long dragon, the yellow dragon, the black dragon, and the pearl dragon. Determined to help, they flew up to the Jade Emperor's palace in heaven to plead for rain. The Jade Emperor, absorbed in heavenly festivities, dismissed their plea, saying he would send rain in a few days, but he did nothing. Days passed and still no rain fell. The dragons, hearing the cries of the people, decided to take matters into their own claws. They scooped up water from the eastern sea in their mighty mouths and sprayed it across the sky like great rain clouds, letting it fall onto the parched land. Showers drenched the fields below, saving the people. But when the Jade Emperor learned that the dragons had acted without his approval, he was furious. He ordered the mountain god to imprison each of the 4 dragons under a separate mountain as punishment. The mountain god, sorrowful but obedient, dropped 4 mountains onto the dragons, pinning them down. Yet even in punishment, the dragons continued to help the people. From beneath each mountain trapped there, transformed into a flowing river. From the yellow dragon came the Great Yellow River. From the long dragon, the Yangtze River. From the black dragon, the Heilong, Amur River. And from the pearl dragon, the Pearl River, Zhujiang. Thus, China's 4 greatest rivers were born, and they ensured that the people would never again suffer devastating drought. This tale symbolically teaches that even the Jade Emperor's authority can be constructively challenged by compassionate action, and it ingrains the idea that China's rivers, the lifeblood of its civilization, are gifts of sacrifice and benevolence from the dragons. To this day, many Chinese regard their rivers as possessing dragon spirits, and dragons are often invoked in the context of water management and rainfall. Because of their auspicious nature, dragons feature in nearly every aspect of Chinese culture. They appear in the Chinese zodiac as the only mythical animal among the 12. Those born in the year of the dragon are traditionally considered vigorous, confident, and destined for success. Dragons perform in New Year's festivals as teams of dancers carry large dragon puppets, twisting and undulating to the thunder of drums, scaring away any lurking evil spirits and ushering in luck for the new year. The very shape of the yellow river on a map is likened to a dragon's curve, and Chinese poets often refer to the winding Great Wall as the dragon across the mountains. Emperors wore dragon robes, and the imperial throne was called the dragon seat. Even common idioms pay tribute. Someone with exceptional talent might be praised as hoping your child becomes a dragon, wangzi chenglong, meaning one wishes one's offspring to achieve greatness. The reverence for dragons is such that the Chinese character for dragon, long, has come to symbolize good fortune and authority itself. In modern China, images of dragons still adorn architecture, furniture, clothing, and artwork as a proud cultural emblem. In summary, the Chinese dragon is the benevolent guardian of the people, powerful yet merciful, fierce in appearance yet kindly in action. It is a creature of water and sky, bridging the realms just as Chinese myth bridges heaven and earth. Legends of dragons emphasize virtue. The generous dragon brings rain to parched fields. The just dragon kings punish only the wicked, like floods seen as heaven's response to moral decay. And the wise dragons even yield to higher principles when necessary, as when they sacrifice their freedom to create rivers for mankind. Through the dragon, Chinese mythology conveys an image of nature and power in harmony with humanity. It is little wonder that to this day, the dragon remains the most beloved of all mythical animals in China, a symbol not of chaos, but of prosperity, wisdom, and auspicious might. Other sacred creatures, phoenixes, Qilins, and more. Alongside dragons, Chinese mythology celebrates a host of auspicious creatures that symbolize virtue and good fortune. Foremost among these is the phoenix, Fenghuang, not the fiery phoenix of Greek lore that dies and is reborn, but a distinctly Chinese version embodying grace, harmony, and justice. The Chinese phoenix is described as an immortal bird with dazzling plumage of 5 colors: red, blue-green, yellow, white, black, representing the 5 virtues and 5 elements. It has a composite anatomy: the beak of a rooster, the face of a swallow, the long neck of a snake, the back of a tortoise, and the tail of a fish, with feathers of parrot-bright brilliance. Male and female phoenixes, Feng and Huang, are often shown together as one combined being, reflecting yin-yang balance and marital harmony. The phoenix is said to appear only in times of peace and prosperity, when a righteous ruler is on the throne, and to hide itself when chaos or corruption reigns. In legend, a phoenix's rare appearance was a heavenly endorsement of a new era. For example, a phoenix was seen flying in the gardens of the Yellow Emperor, and later one appeared at the founding of the Zhou Dynasty, indicating heaven's approval of those virtuous regimes. The phoenix is utterly gentle, never harming even a blade of grass or a tiniest insect. It feeds only on morning dew and the fruits that have already fallen, so as not to take life. Its song is said to be the sweetest melody, carrying an aura of benevolence and majesty. In Chinese art, the phoenix often accompanies the dragon as its feminine counterpart, where the dragon represents the emperor and yang, the active male principle. The phoenix represents the empress and yin, the receptive female principle. Together, the dragon and phoenix symbolize the perfect union of opposites: marital bliss, national harmony, and the balance of heaven and earth. To this day, Chinese weddings are adorned with dragon phoenix motifs, wishing the couple conjugal harmony and enduring love. Another cherished creature is the Qilin, sometimes called the Chinese unicorn. A chimerical beast of extraordinary gentleness, the Qilin has the body of a deer, the tail of an ox, hooves like a horse, and a single horn projecting from its forehead, often wreathed in flesh rather than a sharp spike. Its back is covered in scales of many colors, and it has a creamy yellow underbelly. Despite its fearsome appearance, the Qilin is renowned for its benevolent disposition. It is so kind that it never treads on a living creature or even on growing grass. It carefully steps only on withered grass so as not to harm any fresh blades. The Qilin's rare appearance is said to coincide with the imminent birth or death of a great sage or an illustrious ruler. Thus, it is regarded as a herald of heaven's special favor. According to legend, the first Qilin appeared in the garden of Huangdi, the Yellow Emperor, around 2697 BCE, foreshadowing the brilliance of his reign. 3 centuries later, during Emperor Yao's time, a pair of Qilins was sighted in the imperial capital, testifying to Yao's utmost benevolence and virtue as a ruler. The most famous Qilin story involves Confucius. It is said that shortly before Confucius's birth in the 6th century BCE, his mother encountered a Qilin in the woods. The creature coughed up a jade tablet, or in some versions, gave her a piece of jade, inscribed with an announcement that her son would be a king without a throne, a great sage whose wisdom would rule hearts. The Qilin then vanished. Confucius indeed was born and became one of the greatest philosophers in history. Many years later, just before Confucius's death, a Qilin was reportedly killed by a local hunter, and Confucius, upon seeing the Qilin's corpse, wept for it, seeing it as an omen that his time had come. Because of these tales, the Qilin became firmly associated with wisdom, virtue, and lofty destiny. Emperors delighted in any reported sighting of a Qilin, taking it as a sign that their rule was blessed. The name Qilin itself is a combination of qi, male, and lin, female, suggesting a creature embodying both yin and yang in harmony. Artistic depictions often show the Qilin surrounded by flames or clouds, marking its sacred nature, and with a serene expression. In Ming and Qing dynasty architecture, stone Qilin statues were placed at palace gates or tombs to ward off evil, as it was believed such a pure creature would repel corruption. The Qilin symbolizes benevolence, longevity, and wise administration, all things that flourish when sage rulers or great teachers are present. Chinese lore includes other sacred animals as well. The tortoise, or turtle, is one of the 4 spiritual creatures, with the dragon, phoenix, and Qilin, and represents the north and winter, symbolizing endurance and longevity. In myth, the giant tortoise owl was said to support the heavens. Nüwa cut its legs off to use as sky pillars. Tortoises were revered for their long lifespan and steadiness. Even today, stone tortoises bearing tablets can be found in temple yards, embodying stability of knowledge and memory. The white tiger is the symbol of the west and autumn among the 4 directional beasts, representing fierce strength and military prowess. It was said to appear when the emperor upheld supreme virtue and the realm was at peace. Generals often prayed to the white tiger for courage, and its image decorated shields and weapons. The crane, often depicted alongside pine trees and wise men, is a symbol of longevity and immortality. Taoist immortals like Lu Dongbin and He Xianggu are sometimes shown riding on cranes to heaven, and a common blessing in art is a pair of cranes for a harmonious marriage that lasts. The carp, a type of fish, carries its own legend. A carp that can leap over the Dragon Gate, a high waterfall or rapid in myth, is transformed into a dragon, a metaphor for success in civil exams or life's challenges through perseverance. This saying, "Carp jumps over Dragon Gate," was an encouragement to students striving for scholarly honors. The bat, in Chinese, fu, is a pun for fortune, fu, so 5 bats together represent the 5 blessings: health, wealth, longevity, love of virtue, and peaceful bath. As a result, bats, far from being scary, are lucky symbols often seen on porcelain and textiles, conveying a wish for happiness and good luck. Even the deer, Lu, is auspicious, since Lu also means an official salary, so a deer symbolizes a prosperous career. In the rich tapestry of Chinese folklore, every animal, real or mythical, finds its place and meaning. These creatures form a kind of symbolic language, imparting cultural values and blessings. They also reinforce the idea that humans live in a moral universe where animals and supernatural beings respond to human virtue or vice. When people are kind and rulers are just, phoenixes alight and Qilins appear. When corruption reigns, these gentle beasts vanish into hiding. In that way, the Chinese envisioned nature itself as participating in the cosmic morality. Every time a child learns about the Qilin's visit to Confucius's mother or the phoenix singing at an emperor's coronation, they are imbibing a lesson: strive to be good, and heaven and earth will smile upon you. Thus, from dragons and phoenixes to turtles and bats, Chinese mythology's sacred creatures collectively encourage a life of harmony, virtue, and hope for blessings, a world where humanity, nature, and the divine all work in concert for the good. Mortal heroes, immortals, and the path to apotheosis. Chinese mythology is not populated by gods alone. Many remarkable mortals have ascended to divine status, blurring the line between history and myth. Through exceptional virtue, spiritual cultivation, or heroic sacrifice, these human figures became immortals or were deified as gods after death, joining the ranks of heaven's court. Their stories provided inspiring models of behavior and offered the comforting notion that mortal effort could earn eternal reward. One of the most beloved of such figures is Guanyin, the goddess of mercy. Guanyin's origins lie in Buddhism as the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, but in Chinese lore she transformed into a compassionate goddess who hears the cries of the world. Legends say Guanyin was once a human princess named Miaoshan. Renouncing her royal life to pursue enlightenment, she was tested by suffering. In one tale, her tyrannical father demanded she marry a wealthy man. When Yaoshan refused, choosing to live a chaste life of piety in a nunnery, the enraged king eventually ordered her execution. The executioner's sword, however, shattered against her neck, and even after she was killed by other means, her soul descended into the underworld, where her pure compassion brought relief to tortured souls. In fact, her presence turned hell into a paradise. The damned ceased to suffer, flowers bloomed, and gentle light bathed the shadowy realm. The king of hell, Yama, alarmed that his prison had become a heaven, expelled Miaoshan's soul back to the mortal world. Eventually, Miaoshan attained enlightenment and was apotheosized as Guanyin, swearing never to enter final nirvana until she had liberated all sentient beings from suffering. Now residing on her holy island, Mount Puto in some traditions, Guanyin is said to manifest in countless forms, sometimes as a sweet-faced woman in flowing white robes holding a willow branch and a water vase, sometimes as a man, sometimes even as a fisher or beggar, to rescue those in need. She rescues sailors from shipwrecks, grants children to the childless, heals the sick, and comforts the dying. In one famous story, Guanyin even sacrificed her eyes and arms to provide medicine for her cruel father, demonstrating infinite forgiveness. Through such tales, Guanyin became the embodiment of unconditional love and mercy. Across East Asia, temples to Guanyin abound, and millions pray to her using the simple call, Guanyin Pusa, Bodhisattva Guanyin, save us, believing she will hear every cry. Her journey from mortal to goddess exemplifies the idea that supreme compassion elevates one to divine status, and it provides a role model especially for women of boundless empathy and inner strength. Another example of mortal ascent is found in the legendary group known as the Eight Immortals, Ba Xian. These 8 figures, celebrated in folklore and art, were historic or semi-historic individuals from various dynasties who achieved immortality through Taoist alchemy or virtuous deeds. They are a delightfully diverse band. Lu Dongbin, a Tang Dynasty scholar who became a wandering swordsman immortal, fighting demons with a magic sword. Li Tieguai, a beggar with an iron crutch who helps the poor and carries a gourd of elixir. He Xianggu, a young woman who attained immortality by eating a supernatural peach and now carries a lotus flower, bestowing health. Zhang Li Quan, a jovial, bearded hermit often depicted with a big belly and a palm leaf fan that revives the dead. Cao Guoju, an imperial uncle in court robes who holds castanets or jade tablets representing noble authority turned to good. Han Shangzi, a flute-playing philosopher, said to be a grandnephew of Confucius or a Tang minister's nephew, whose music can make flowers bloom and soothe wild beasts. Lan Kaihe, an eccentric youth, often of ambiguous gender, who wears tattered robes and carries a basket of flowers, symbolizing joy and freedom. And Zhang Golao, a quirky old man who carries a bamboo drum and famously rides backward on a white donkey. He symbolizes the wisdom of doing things in unorthodox ways. Each immortal has a special attribute. Lu's sword, Li's pord, from which a heavenly doctor or smoke can emerge, He's lotus, Zhongli's fan, Cao's castanets, Han Shang's flute, Lan's flower basket, and Zhang's drum or fish drum clappers. Together, they represent health, wealth, longevity, virtue, reputation, insight, and talent, the fundamental desires of human life. The 8 immortals were said to live on Penglai Mountain Isle, a paradisical island in the Bohai Sea, or simply roam freely, convening for celestial revels. They occasionally descend to the human world to right wrongs or test people's goodness. A favorite tale is The 8 Immortals Cross the Sea, in which they come upon an ocean and, rather than ride on clouds or dragons, each immortal uses their unique magical item to get across, demonstrating that each has their own method to achieve the same goal, hence the saying, 8 immortals cross the sea, each shows their prowess. In art, they are often shown together celebrating at birthdays or New Year, offering good wishes. People hang pictures of the 8 immortals to invite prosperity and longevity, as each immortal grants a specific blessing. For instance, Cao Guoju blesses one with high rank and salary, Han Shangzi with talent and arts, He Shanggu with health, etc. Their mortal backgrounds, rich, poor, noble, common, male, female, old, young, underscore a key message. The Tao is open to everyone. One does not need to be an emperor or a sage from birth to achieve immortality. A beggar or a maiden can reach the divine through devotion and purity of heart. Chinese myth also includes the deification of historical heroes and sages. The concept of apotheosis, becoming a god, meant that a person of great impact could be worshipped after death and integrated into the cosmic order. A prime example is Guanyin, the general from the Three Kingdoms era, 3rd century CE. Renowned for his unwavering loyalty, righteousness, and martial valor, Guanyin was posthumously titled a martial saint and eventually worshipped as Guandi, the god of war, or more accurately, god of loyalty and righteous war. Not only soldiers, but also merchants and law enforcers pray to Lord Guan for his protection and upright spirit. Statues of Guanyin, depicted with his long beard, crescent blade halberd, and fierce countenance, guard countless temples, shrines, and even businesses, symbolizing integrity and brotherhood. Another is Mazu, originally Lin Mo, a kind-hearted 10th century girl who grew up by the sea. From a young age, she had spiritual powers and would rescue fishermen in storms by braving the waves in a red dress or projecting her spirit out over the sea. After she died, or ascended, at age 28, coastal communities worshipped her as Mazu, goddess of the sea, credited with saving ships from wreck and bringing sailors home safe. Over time, Mazu was officially conferred titles by emperors, like Queen of Heaven, and her cult spread wherever Chinese ships sailed. Today, from Taiwan to Malaysia to San Francisco, Mazu's temples dot the harbors, filled with votive model ships and gratitude plaques from those saved by Mother Ancestor. Both Guanyin and Mazu started as humans whose exceptional qualities, loyalty in one, compassion in the other, led people to revere them as patron deities who still actively help the living. These are just two among many. Virtuous officials like Bao Geng of Song Dynasty, famed for justice, became a righteous judge of the dead in folk religion. The poet immortal Lu Dongbin is prayed to by those seeking to ward off evil and drunkenness, as he overcame temptation. The legendary archer Hou Yi, though he never found the elixir of life for himself, is honored as a lord of archery and East in some Taoist circles. Even Confucius, while not exactly deified in the same sense, has temples where offerings are made as to a spirit of wisdom guiding scholars. Through such apotheoses, the line between myth and history blurs. Chinese culture created a feedback loop where history informed myth, mortal deeds leading to deification, and myth informed history, deified figures influencing behavior and values of later generations. The purpose of these deifications was not merely flattery, it served a social and spiritual need. By elevating real people to divine status, society reinforced the ideals those people stood for. It assured the populace that virtue is recognized by heaven, even if not always rewarded on earth. A loyal general might be betrayed and killed in life, like Guanyin was, but he becomes a god afterward. A filial daughter might die young, like Mazu, or like the filial daughter's 7 fairies, but she ascends to goddesshood. This offers both comfort and a moral compass. Do good, and even if humans do not reward you, the cosmos will. Thus, the Chinese pantheon continually renewed itself with mortal exemplars, keeping the pantheon dynamic and closely connected to the living community's values. As the proverb goes, heroes are made gods, implying that anyone who achieves extraordinary goodness could, in time, live forever in the hearts of the people, literally as a god. Through such stories, Chinese mythology becomes a grand moral theater where mortals and immortals interact and even trade places. It is a worldview where the distance between earth and heaven is bridgeable by virtue. Grandmother Guanyin reminds that human mercy can become divine. The 8 immortals show that a bit of magic lies hidden in ordinary people. Deified heroes like Guanyin and Mazu reinforce that courage, loyalty, and kindness are remembered and rewarded by heaven. In temples large and small, plaques often read Hao Tian You Yan, vast heaven has eyes, essentially meaning the gods see and reward the good, often illustrated by these once mortal deities who act as heaven's watching eyes. It is a beautiful concept that in Chinese tradition, Shen Xian, spirits and immortals, are not a separate race from us, but our ancestors, our paragons, our inspired eccentrics, who, by living exceptionally, carved a path for us to follow toward transcendence. In that sense, Chinese mythology is as much about becoming as it is about being. encouraging each person to cultivate the virtues of a sage or the heart of a Buddha, since one day, who knows, your story too might be told among the stars. Journey to the West, the Monkey King's quest for redemption. No account of Chinese mythic lore would be complete without Sun Wukong, the irrepressible Monkey King, whose adventures are told in the great novel Journey to the West, CYOG, a Ming Dynasty epic blending mythology, spirituality, and comedy. Sun Wukong's story is the quintessential journey from mischief to enlightenment, a beloved tale known to every Chinese child. It begins on Flower Fruit Mountain, where a certain stone egg atop the mountain is nourished by the energies of heaven and earth, until one day it cracks open. From it emerges a monkey, born of rock yet alive, a product of sky and earth. This magical monkey soon proves to be no ordinary creature. In time, he earns the title Mei Ho Wang, the handsome Monkey King, after leading the other monkeys through a veil-like waterfall and discovering a paradisal cave behind it for them to live in. For a while, the Monkey King reigns merrily over his monkey tribe. Yet, despite the abundance of his mountain garden, Sun Wukong grows restless and craves immortality. Witnessing an old monkey die, he becomes acutely aware of his own mortality and vows to find a way to live forever. Sun Wukong thus sets out to learn the secrets of the Tao. He sails across the great ocean on a raft and travels through lands of men, finally finding the Patriarch Subhuti, a Taoist sage who agrees to teach the eager monkey spells and martial arts. Under this immortal master, Sun Wukong proves an extraordinary student. He learns to transform into 72 different shapes, animals, objects, even other people, a power known as the 72 earthly transformations. He learns to ride clouds and fly. With a single somersault, he can cover 108,000 li, thousands of miles, in an instant. He gains X-ray vision, able to see through disguises of demons, and fiery golden eyes, a side effect of being baked in a furnace later, which we'll get to. Armed with these skills, Sun Wukong returns home a superior being. But his pride swells along with his powers. The Monkey King acquires a weapon fit for a god. During a visit to the Dragon King's underwater palace, he casually picks up what turns out to be the As You Wish gold-banded cudgel, a heavenly iron staff that can shrink to the size of a needle or grow gigantic. This staff, originally a ruler for measuring the ocean's depth, becomes Sun Wukong's trademark weapon, and with it, he defeats the Dragon King's army when they try to reclaim it. Sun Wukong also coerces the Dragon Kings into giving him a golden chainmail shirt, a phoenix feather cap, and cloud-walking boots. Thus, he equips himself like a celestial general. The Dragon Kings, aggrieved, report the monkey's insolence to heaven. Up in the Jade Emperor's court, there is debate on how to handle this bold monkey. The Jade Emperor's advisors suggest a soft approach, invite the Monkey King to heaven, and give him a minor official post to keep him under watch. Accordingly, heaven offers Sun Wukong the position of stable master in charge of the celestial horses. The Monkey King is thrilled to go to heaven, thinking himself recognized, but when he discovers that stable master is a lowly job, he is outraged at the insult. He rebels, abandoning his post and returning to earth, proclaiming himself Qi Tian Da Sheng, the great sage equal to heaven. The Jade Emperor, now alarmed, sends a host of heavenly soldiers to subdue Sun Wukong, but the monkey defeats them all, using his transformations and superior combat skills. Even the 4 heavenly kings and Neja, the son of one of them, fail to capture him. The Jade Emperor has no choice but to acknowledge Sun Wukong's chosen title and invite him back to heaven, this time treating him as an honored guest. He is given a place in the celestial bureaucracy as guardian of the heavenly peaches. Some legends say he was made banana garden superintendent as a joke, but more often it's the peach orchard. But temptation proves the monkey's downfall. While serving in heaven, Sun Wukong learns that the Queen Mother of the West is hosting her grand peach banquet, to which he was not invited. Only gods and high immortals can attend. Offended, he sneaks into the peach orchard prior to the event and finds the ripening peaches of immortality. Unable to resist their aroma, he gorges himself on countless peaches, devouring those fruits that would have granted longevity to the guests. He then stumbles into Laozi's alchemy laboratory and gobbles down several elixir pills being refined for the Jade Emperor. Finally, in a wine cellar, he drinks heavenly wine to wash it all down. By the time the banquet is to start, the monkey is drunk and raucous. When confronted by the hosts of heaven for ruining the feast, Sun Wukong lashes out. A full battle ensues in the halls of heaven. Sun Wukong, armed with his iron staff and nigh invulnerable after consuming so many magical things, fights tens of thousands of celestial warriors and wins. Even the great Erlong Shen, a divine warrior with a third eye, can only fight him to a standstill, and Lao Zi has to throw his diamond jade ring to knock out Sun Wukong. Captured at last, the Monkey King is sentenced to death, but having eaten Lao Zi's immortal pills, he is indestructible. So they try to execute him by roasting him in Lao Zi's 8-trigram furnace to burn away the elixir and make him mortal. But after 49 days, he bursts out alive and stronger than ever. The fire only gave him fiery golden eyes that see through illusions. The Monkey King resumes his rampage, thoroughly humiliating heaven's forces. In utter desperation, the Jade Emperor appeals to Buddha in his Western paradise, India. Buddha comes in person to confront the boasting Monkey King. He makes a wager. Sun Wukong is dared to leap out of Buddha's palm. Smirking, the Monkey King agrees. After all, with one leap, he can reach the end of the universe. Sun Wukong somersaults into the void. He travels to the ends of the world until he sees 5 huge pink pillars rising before him. Thinking he's reached the cosmic extremity, Sun Wukong marks his achievement by scribbling a statement on one pillar. In some versions, he also relieves himself at its base, just to be cheeky. Satisfied, he leaps back, only for Buddha to show him the writing on Buddha's own middle finger. The pillars were Buddha's fingers. Sun Wukong never left Buddha's hand. Realizing he's been outwitted, Sun Wukong tries to fight, but Buddha flips his palm and pins the monkey under a mountain. Buddha seals the mountain of 5 elements on top of Sun Wukong with a sacred mantra to ensure he cannot escape. At last, havoc in heaven is quelled. The Monkey King's arrogant reign of mischief is over. For 500 years, Sun Wukong remains under that mountain, stealing in his own pride and misery. This begins the next act, a journey of redemption. In Buddha's grand plan, even this naughty monkey has a role to play. Enter Tong Zongzong, also known as Xuanzang or Tripitaka, a devout Buddhist monk in Tang Dynasty China, chosen to make a perilous journey to India and bring back sacred scriptures to enlighten the East. Guanyin, on Buddha's behalf, searches for disciples to guard this scripture seeker. She visits the trapped Monkey King and offers him a deal. If he agrees to obey and protect the munt on his journey, he will be freed and given a chance at spiritual redemption. Sun Wukong, long yearning for liberation, humbly accepts. Guanyin has Tripitaka remove the seal, and out hops the Monkey King, bound now to serve with a new magical headband tied around his brow. Guanyin taught Tripitaka a simple spell. Whenever Sun Wukong misbehaves or entertains evil thoughts, the monk can recite the Headache Sutra and cause the band to constrict, racking the monkey's mind with pain. Thus constrained, to his great annoyance, Sun Wukong becomes the first of Tripitaka's 3 disciples. He calls the monk master and sincerely, if sometimes grudgingly, guards him. As the journey to the west unfolds, they gain 2 more disciples, Zhu Baji, Pigsy, and Xiao Wujing, Sandy. Pigsy was once Marshal Tanpang, a heavenly officer who, after drunkenly flirting with the moon goddess, was banished to Earth and reborn as a half-man, half-pig monster with insatiable appetites. Guanyin recruits the bumbling but good-natured Pigsy to join Tripitaka after Sun Wukong defeats him in a skirmish. Xiao Wujing was once General Curtain Lifting in heaven, exiled for accidentally breaking a crystal goblet. He became a melancholic sand demon after devouring people in the flowing sands river. Upon repentance, he too joins the pilgrim band. Even Tripitaka's horse is supernatural. It's a transformed dragon prince who owed Guanyin a debt and became a white horse to carry the monk. Together, this motley crew of priest, monkey, pig, sand spirit, and dragon horse travels westward, facing a myriad of adventures and trials. They traverse perilous terrains, high mountains, and deep rivers, and 81 ordeals, as predetermined by fate, before reaching Buddha's realm. Along the way, demons and evil spirits constantly attempt to capture Tripitaka. Many of these monsters crave the monk's flesh, which is said to grant immortality if eaten, Tripitaka being a man of holy virtue. Sun Wukong serves as the pilgrim's chief protector, using his prodigious abilities to defeat or outwit these threats. Each demon confrontation is both an action set piece and a moral lesson. For instance, when facing the White Bone Demon, who thrice disguises herself to trick Tripitaka as a village girl, then her mother, then her father, Sun Wukong sees through the illusions with his fiery eyes and kills the demon. But Tripitaka, not seeing the truth and appalled at perceived murder, scolds and even banishes Sun Wukong for a time. Only after Tripitaka falls into peril does he realize Sun Wukong was right. Through such episodes, Tripitaka learns discernment, and Sun Wukong learns patience and forgiveness. He could have left forever, but ultimately he returns to save his master. Zhu Baji, Pigsy, representing human foolishness and lust, often falls for temptations like pretty women who are actually demons in disguise, and has to be saved by Sun Wukong's alertness or Sha Wujing's steadiness. Yet Pigsy also shows kindness and resilience at times, and by journey's end he's bettered by the hardships. Sha Wujing, symbolizing steadfastness and silent suffering, rarely shines but never falters. His loyalty keeps the group together when times get tough. The interplay of their personalities provides much of the story's humor and warmth, like a divine family trekking together. As the journey progresses, Sun Wukong transforms from a rebellious loner into a true Buddhist disciple. Initially, he solves every problem through violence or magic, but gradually he learns compassion and restraint from Tripitaka's teachings. In one poignant trial, they arrive at the Flame Mountain, which bars their way with searing heat. To quench the mountain's fire, Sun Wukong must borrow a palm leaf fan from Princess Ironfan, the wife of his old enemy, the Bull Demon King. Instead of brute force, Sun Wukong uses clever disguises and negotiations, eventually obtaining the fan through a mix of trickery and genuine compromise, thus showing growth in using wisdom over just fighting. In another trial, Sun Wukong has an opportunity to kill a particularly vile demon king, but hesitates when he realizes this demon is the spiritual beast of the Bodhisattva Wenshu, Manjushri, testing them. He learns that not every challenge can be solved by the fist. Some require endurance, faith, or even yielding. The pilgrim band also receives aid from various benevolent deities along the way, a reminder that Sun Wukong must operate within a larger moral and spiritual framework, not just by his own will. The once arrogant Monkey King, who proudly declared himself equal to heaven, now bows sincerely to bodhisattvas and arhats who come to guide them, having realized the importance of humility. After 14 years and myriad adventures, the pilgrims finally reach Thunderclap Mountain in India, where the Buddha resides. They are greeted with a hero's welcome. Tripitaka receives the scrolls of Buddhist sutras he was sent for. In one last trick, the mischievous Buddha gives them scrolls with nothing written on them, a test of their understanding. Tripitaka is puzzled but doesn't complain about the empty scriptures, symbolizing that enlightenment cannot simply be handed over, it must be realized. Satisfied, Buddha exchanges them for true scriptures. The triumphant pilgrims return to Tang China with the invaluable scriptures, spreading enlightenment. At this story's end, each character is rewarded for their journey of faith and hardship. Tripitaka, Xuanzang, attains Buddhahood, becoming the Buddha of precocious merit. Sun Wukong is granted the title Victorious Fighting Buddha, finally achieving the immortality and honor he sought in a righteous way. No longer a mere stone monkey or a rogue demon, he is recognized as an enlightened being. This moment is profoundly moving. The celestial choir sings as Sun Wukong is transformed. The gold band on his head falls off, the symbol of his atonement complete, and he stands in radiant Buddha form, his journey from rebellious demon to enlightened protector fulfilled. Zhu Baji, who still loves earthly life, is not made a Buddha but is granted the post of altars cleaner, in jest, as he cleaned out many an offering along the way with his appetite, meaning he's recognized for improvement but not perfected. Sha Wujing becomes an arhat, a saintly enlightened being, valued for his consistency. Even the dragon horse is rewarded by being turned into a naga, divine dragon. Thus, the journey to the west concludes with spiritual fulfillment. For Sun Wukong in particular, it is a complete redemption arc. The monkey who once wreaked havoc in heaven now protects the Dharma as a Buddha. The story has remained enormously popular because it operates on multiple levels. On the surface, it's a fantastical adventure with battles and humor. Sun Wukong's irreverent antics, like calling powerful deities nicknames, Pigsy's bumbling attempts at heroism, etc., entertain audiences of all ages. At a deeper level, it's an allegory of the spiritual journey. Each main character represents an aspect of the human condition: mind, body, heart, temperance. And the pilgrimage symbolizes the path to enlightenment with all its trials and temptations. The story imparts the lesson that even the wildest nature can be refined. Sun Wukong's mind, initially so scattered and violent, becomes focused and compassionate through Buddhist practice. It also teaches the importance of teamwork and friendship. None of the travelers could have succeeded alone, but together, combining Sun Wukong's courage, Pigsy's resilience, Sha Wujing's patience, and Tripitaka's faith, they overcome every obstacle. Today, Sun Wukong remains arguably the most iconic character in Chinese folklore. He's seen as the ultimate trickster hero, clever, bold, and subversive, yet ultimately good-hearted and morally correct. Children love him for his rebellious streak. He can flit across the sky on a cloud and magically grow hair clones of himself to beat up bullies, while adults appreciate the deeper meaning of his transformation. The Monkey King has inspired countless adaptations: operas, TV series, comics, video games, and films, even influencing characters like Dragon Ball's Goku in Japanese manga, who is essentially a sci-fi reimagining of Sun Wukong. He represents the indomitable spirit, one that might defy the highest authority out of a sense of injustice, but can also learn and grow and make peace with heaven. In a way, Sun Wukong's story is the story of every person. We each have a bit of the monkey's restless mind that needs taming and focusing, a journey of our own toward wisdom. And just as Guanyin and Buddha never gave up on Sun Wukong despite his many mistakes, the tale assures that no being is beyond enlightenment. In the end, the Monkey King finds his rightful place in the cosmos, and it's not on the throne of heaven by force, but beside Buddha in harmony. Conclusion: the living tapestry of Chinese myth. From the primordial stirrings of Pangu to the enlightened triumph of the Monkey King, we have journeyed through the vast landscape of Chinese mythology, a realm where heaven and earth, gods and mortals, history and legend are deeply intertwined. These stories are far more than distant, fanciful tales. They have been a living force in Chinese culture for thousands of years, continually retold and reinterpreted in each generation. By the gentle light of oil lamps in ancient times, storytellers passed down these myths as a way to explain the mysteries of the world: why the sky stands high and rivers flow, thanks to a giant and a goddess; why humans strive for virtue, inspired by sage emperors and culture heroes; and why even a mischievous monkey must learn humility. The myths provided a sense of cosmic order and moral guidance, reinforcing the idea that heaven rewards righteousness and punishes arrogance, that courage and compassion are the highest virtues, and that balance between opposing forces, yin and yang, earth and heaven, ruler and subject, is the key to harmony. Chinese mythology has never been static. It evolved through the ages, absorbing influences from Confucian ethics, Taoist philosophy, and Buddhist spirituality, and it reflects the changing values and hopes of the Chinese people. Yet the core themes remained consistent: an emphasis on filial piety, loyalty, moral integrity, and harmony with the natural and spiritual worlds. These stories provided a shared language through which a farmer in a remote village and a scholar in the imperial court could understand each other's values. During the Imperial era, emperors evoked myth to legitimize their rule, claiming to be descendants of the Yellow Emperor or the Dragon, and rebels, too, evoked myth to inspire uprisings, the story of peasant leader Liu Bang seeing a dragon, presaging he would become emperor. In everyday life, people looked to mythic figures for personal guidance. A young woman might pray to Mazu before her fisherman husband went to sea. A student might draw inspiration from Lu Dongbin or Confucius when studying late at night. A warrior could carry an image of Guanyin for courage. Even in the modern era, with all its scientific advances, Chinese myths remain embedded in culture. The Chinese lunar calendar still names its years after the 12 zodiac animals, connecting each year to ancient lore of the Jade Emperor's race. Festivals like Chinese New Year, Mid-Autumn, Dragon Boat Festival, commemorating the poet Guanyin but associated with dragon mythology, are celebrated with customs rooted in myth. In language, references to mythology are common. An accomplished person might be said to pick the stars like Kufa chasing the sun, from a myth of a giant who raced the sun across the sky. Or a person aiming too high is warned, don't mend the sky like Nüwa without divine resources. The myths provided a sense of cosmic order and moral guidance, reinforcing the idea that heaven rewards righteousness and punishes arrogance, that courage and compassion are the highest virtues, and that balance between opposing forces, yin and yang, earth and heaven, ruler and subject, is the key to harmony. Chinese mythology has never been static. It evolved through the ages, absorbing influences from Confucian ethics, Taoist philosophy, and Buddhist spirituality, and it reflects the changing values and hopes of the Chinese people. Yet, the core themes remained consistent, an emphasis on filial piety, loyalty, moral integrity, and harmony with the natural and spiritual worlds. These stories provided a shared language through which a farmer in a remote village and a scholar in the imperial court could understand each other's values. During the Imperial era, emperors evoked myth to legitimize their rule, claiming to be descendants of the Yellow Emperor or the Dragon, and rebels, too, evoked myth to inspire uprisings, the story of peasant leader Liu Beng seeing a dragon, presaging he would become emperor. In everyday life, people looked to mythic figures for personal guidance. A young woman might pray to Mazu before her fisherman husband went to sea. A student might draw inspiration from Lu Dongbin or Confucius when studying late at night. A warrior could carry an image of Guanyin for courage. Even in the modern era, with all its scientific advances, Chinese myths remain embedded in culture. The Chinese lunar calendar still names its years after the 12 zodiac animals, connecting each year to ancient lore of the Jade Emperor's race. Festivals like Chinese New Year, Mid-Autumn, Dragon Boat Festival, commemorating the poet Guanyin but associated with dragon mythology, are celebrated with customs rooted in myth. In language, references to mythology are common. An accomplished person might be said to pick the stars like Kufa chasing the sun, from a myth of a giant who raced the sun across the sky. Or a person aiming too high is warned, don't mend the sky like Nüwa without divine resources. Characters from Journey to the West, such as Monkey King or Pigsy, have become archetypes for certain personality types. In art and entertainment, mythical themes enjoy periodic revivals, be it big-budget fantasy movies about the creation of the world or TV dramas about the love lives of immortals. Through all this, the essence of Chinese mythology, its humanity, continues to shine. These myths were never just about gods on high, they were about humans and for humans. They taught empathy, feeling the sorrow of the flood victims through Yu's efforts, aspiration, daring to improve oneself like the Monkey King seeking Buddhahood, and resilience, knowing that after even the worst deluge, the land can be renewed. In a rapidly changing world, Chinese mythology provides a cultural anchor. It connects modern Chinese people to their ancient ancestors who first told these tales under starlit skies. It also offers the world universal themes wrapped in uniquely Chinese imagery. The idea that creation is an ordering of chaos, Pangu's act, that compassion is the supreme virtue, Guanyin's story, that knowledge and wisdom are true power, Fuxi's and Huangdi's gifts, and that redemption is always possible, Sun Wukong's journey. These are messages with resonance far beyond China. That is why Chinese myths, like the dragons within them, have traveled around the globe and captured imaginations everywhere. As we conclude our exploration, imagine again a warm evening in a Chinese village or town. The lanterns flicker as the elder finishes the final story, perhaps of a Qilin appearing to a virtuous ruler, or a phoenix alighting to mark a new era of peace. The listeners, young and old, nod in appreciation. Overhead, the sky is the same vast expanse once propped up by a turtle's legs. The mountains on the horizon might well be the body of a resting goddess. And in the deep sparkle of the Milky Way, one might fancy the outline of a dragon's silhouette, or the laughing twinkle of the Monkey King's eyes. In China's living mythology, the past is never truly past. It is a timeless tapestry, ever renewing like the waxing and waning moon. These ancient tales continue to whisper their wisdom and wonder, offering guidance, identity, and hope. They remind us that we are all part of a grand story, that the cosmos itself is alive with meaning, and that through virtue and perseverance, we too can touch the heavens. As the Chinese saying derived from myth goes, heaven hears as the people hear, heaven sees as the people see, which is to say, in the end, the divine is listening to the human heart. And so the stories live on, as enduring as the stars, carried in the heart of a culture from time immemorial into the endless future.